I'll maybe give a bit of a disclaimer, which is probably not, if you ask the speaking coaches, the right way to start a public address, but you'll forgive me. I want to speak about a topic which we're familiar with, and we've maybe heard these ideas before, and therefore some of us might say, what do I need to hear another Shmuze for? Fair? The Mesilas Yesharim addresses this question. Mesilas Yesharim says, sometimes you know the stuff, but Chazar is important. Some of us are building that Chazar muscle in morning Seder and afternoon Seder. So sometimes it's just important to hear it again. That's one reason. Second reason is that sometimes same information but a different presentation just hits you in a different way. And third reason is that hearing the same ideas at different points in our lives, when I'm going through different things, when I've had different life experiences, when I'm at a different point of maturity, that's also valuable, because when I experienced it and I heard this idea 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 weeks ago, I'm a different person than I was then. So that's just as an introduction, or maybe as a disclaimer even. I recently heard a story that some kids came back from, I think it was a Pesach vacation or something, first day of school back, so all the girls are in the class, they're schmoozing, what did you do, where did you go? And eventually the teacher, I think it was Mrs. Cohen or something, gets all the girls together, so fine, she gets all the girls together, everyone's seated, so she calls up Sarla and says, Sarla, why don't you come to the front of the class and tell everyone what you got up to? So Sarla proudly comes to the front of the class, and she says, the highlight of my Pesach vacation was we went to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We were on the Mississippi River. It was gewaldic. So the teacher says, wow, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mississippi River, very impressive. It must have been fun. She said, yeah, it was fantastic. So then Mrs. Cohen went in for the kill, which, okay, we can debate the educational tactics over here. But she said something like, Sarla, do you remember that before we went on Pesach vacation, we were working on spelling? Kind of, okay. And remember we said we were going to practice, and then the first day back we were going to have like an oral spelling bee? So Sarla says, I guess so. So Mrs. Cohen says, well, Sarla, you just gave us great words. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mississippi. Could you spell where the places you went to? So Sarla looks like a deer in the headlights, and she says, we went to Ohio. So Sarla was faced with a challenging scenario. And she really just flopped. Let's be real. No offense to Sarla. And we all face challenges in our lives. To one degree or another, we all have had challenges, are currently going through challenges, and will have challenges. It's like you get added to the list of death and taxes. It's just part of life. Some of these are big life challenges. Parnasa, shalom bayis, getting married, chinuch, our health. These are big life challenges. But we all have small life challenges as well. Getting up in the morning, understanding the Gemara, not getting in another fight with my roommate. We all have challenges of some kind. So, with that in mind, that's why I think it's worthwhile just to maybe frame the issue from a Torah perspective. What do we do when we have these challenges? So, let's look at this week's parasha. Yaakov's running away from Esav at the command, really, of his parents. And the pasuk says, "Vayitzi Yaakov Beersheva elach Harana." So he's going towards Haran. Vayifka b'makom. He chances upon this place, Vayalin Sham, and he stays overnight. Chazal say that language of Vayifka b'makom, some of us are learning Rashi, we know, is not simply he chanced upon a place, but he davened. And that's the basis for us davening Maariv. That's very interesting. If you look at a couple places in Shas, the Gemara has a machlokes. Is Maariv, Tfilas Arvis, is it Rishus? Is it optional? Is it Chava? Is it mandatory? And almost all Rishonim assume that we pass in Tfilas Arvis is Rishus. It's optional. So before you get very excited and just say, I daven, that means I can daven Mincha, go to sleep, wake up and daven Shachris, and I'm a Lechatchila person, let's just wait a second. Because even though the Rishonim say that we pass in the Gemara, Tfilas Arvis is Rishus, it's optional, nevertheless, nowadays we have accepted upon ourselves, Tfilas Arvis is Chayva, you must daven Maariv. So, sorry, gotta daven Maariv tonight. There are some minor exceptions. Some of the Rishonim point out, for example, we don't have Chazar Shatz Why doesn't Chazan repeat the Shemona Esrei at Maariv like he does at Shachris and Mincha? Because that's a throwback to the origins of Tfilas Arvis being Rishus. So if that helps make it a little bit easier. But how do you explain this? I understand that there are some of us who tend towards being machmir. Oh, there's something that I don't have to do, but I could do. I'd like to take that on. I'd like to go above and beyond. Okay, and there are segments of Klal Yisrael that have historically done that. Beautiful. But why is it that Tfilas Arvis, why do we come to the place that we paskin it's optional, and then, but we assume it's mandatory? So I once saw an article written by Rav Nissen Alpert. Rav Nissen Alpert was a Rosh Yeshiva in YU. He was a prime Talmid of Rav Moshe Feinstein. I think if I recall correctly, at Rav Moshe Feinstein's funeral, the family spoke, and I think Rav Nissen Alpert spoke. That's how close of a Talmid he was. Maybe I'm off that he didn't speak there, but he was mamish, one of Rav Moshe's closest Talmidim. He has a beautiful idea. He says, let's contrast the tefillas of Avram and Yitzchak, who set up Shachris and Mincha respectively, to Yaakov. Yitzchak and Avram, says Rav Nissen Alpert, lived relatively comfortable lives. I don't mean financially, they were financially comfortable, but in general, they had challenges, but they had low-level challenges, relatively, says Rav Nissen Alpert. Yaakov Avinu is a life filled with challenges. Imagine growing up with Esav. Your brother wants to kill you. You run away, and then you get a father-in-law. I don't know if that's a bracha or not. And then you get the same father-in-law twice, maybe 4 times. Then you run away. And then Yaakov goes into Golus. He's the one who goes into Golus. Avram maybe goes down. He goes into Golus. So Yaakov lives a very challenging life. The whole episode with Yosef, managed the whole thing. So it says Rav Nissen Alpert, the tefillah that Yaakov set up is a tefillah based in tsaros, in struggle. Avram and Yitzchak's tefillahs are not exclusively based in struggle, they're based in connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu in the broader sense. And therefore, said Rav Nissen Alpert, the reason that we paskin tefillas arvis is optional on a Gemara level is because we don't want to mandate people to daven in that modality of you are suffering. You're in challenge, you're in crisis mode. We don't want to mandate that. However, says Rav Nissen Alpert, once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so now Klal Yisrael was plunged into national crisis. We don't maybe feel this, but we are in a state of crisis of tzara. And therefore, says Rav Nissen Alpert, what did we do in response to that? We mandated that we must have a Maariv. Because now that we are in a state of crisis, of tzara, of challenges, we're in the Yaakov Avinu mentality day to day, so we should have a Maariv. Says Rav Nissen Alpert, this might explain as well a line in the Mishnayos. The Mishnayos and Brachos describe that Tfilas Arvis, Maariv, does not have a kfiyas. There's no set to it. So what does that mean? So, on a simple level, it's talking about the time. You have a much more expansive way time period to daven Maariv. But says Rav Nissen Alpert, maybe there's something else going on over there. When the Gemara says Tfilas Arvis has no kfiyas, it's not set, perhaps what it means is we hope that we will get back to a place in history where we will not have to daven Maariv. We hope that we will not be in a golus. We hope that we will not be suffering on a national level, on an individual level, and therefore, those that want to daven Maariv, those that want to have another opportunity to daven Kadosh Baruch Hu, that'd be great. But we won't obligate anyone because we won't be in that type of situation. This is what I think is the beautiful idea from Rav Nissen Alpert. And from here, I think we get 2 approaches on how to deal with challenges. The first one is to daven. You daven. We believe in the Koach Tefillah. We believe Tefillah does something. Now, Rav Soloveitchik pointed out that we describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a Shomei Tefillah. He listens to our Tefillahs. But what we do not describe Hashem as someone who responds exactly the way I want him to respond to my Tefillahs. It doesn't happen. He's a Shomei Tefillah. He listens. So Tefillah doesn't guarantee the result, the outcome will be exactly what I want. Well, if it doesn't guarantee, if there's maybe not even a 50% chance, so then what's the point of davening? So that really leads us to what I would call approach number 2, which we'll call lean into it. Lean into it. Don't just fall away. Go, push yourself. Right? Try and spell Minneapolis and Minnesota and Mississippi. Try and spell those. SSI. Some of us learned that. Yeah, you feel good tricks. Later on in the parasha, the pasuk says, "Vayider Yaakov neder leimar." Yaakov takes a neder upon himself, saying as follows: "Im yelukim imadi, if Hashem will be with me, ushmarani b'derech hazeh, and He protects me, and I'll be able to come back, then I will make a house for Hashem. I'll give him meiser." Tosfos quotes a medrash that understands the fact that it says Vayidar Yaakov neder. Yaakov took a neder, and then it says Lamor, saying. The medrash says that's kind of obvious. I don't need the word Lamor there. Saying, of course, what follows. Yaakov took a neder, and this was the neder. Why do you need the word Lamor? Says Tosfos, says the medrash, that this Lamor is teaching me a message l'doros. This is a message which we take with us. We can implement this. Now, we don't ordinarily recommend people taking nedarim. But what's the idea behind this? But before we get to that, let's ask a different question. What type of neder is this? Hashem, if you do your part, well then I'll give you something. What type of neder is that? Does that test me or highlight anything about me? All it shows is, Hashem, how much do you want what I have to offer? If you want what I've got to offer enough, Hashem, then you'll do your part. Or another way of saying that, is this a bribe? Hashem, I got something good for you coming, just take care of your end. So, Rabbi Ariel, who's one of the contemporary writers, Rosh Yeshiva, he writes on beautiful Svarim on Tanakh. So in Sefer Shoftim, he discusses this point. And he suggests that there are two types of people who take a neder in a crisis. One, or regarding a crisis. One type is a person who takes a neder in the midst of the crisis, and one is the person who takes a neder after the crisis has ended. So he says, the person who takes a neder after the crisis has ended has really solid ground. That's called Hakar Satov. You know what, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, I made it out of this situation. I was successful. I haven't lived. I live another day, whatever it is. So thank you very much. Here, I'm obligating myself. I'll bring a korban to the base of Mikdash. That's beautiful. That's a midah of Hakar Satov. However, says Rabbi Ariel, the higher level is the person who takes a neder in the midst of the crisis. Because when you take a neder in the midst of the crisis, says Rabbi Ariel, essentially what you're doing is it's a declaration of emunah. I don't know how this is going to end. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And yet, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, I'm taking a neder. There will be time when I can bring this korban, when I can give tzedakah, when I could do this action. And therefore, he says that when I take a neder in the midst of the crisis, what I'm saying is I firmly believe Hashem will get me out of this crisis. I firmly believe I will be able to move on beyond this. And therefore, He's going to give me Hashem will give me the wherewithal to make good on my promise. Sometimes when we deal with crisis, challenges, hardships, whatever word we want to use, people take one of two approaches. And I think that that's a mistake, not because each one is necessarily intrinsically wrong, but that I think we don't often consider a third approach. One approach is just ignore. Deny the problem, move on. That could work. That could also be a recipe for therapy. But, okay, that could work. Option number 2 is to acknowledge the challenge and just push through. I know that I'm riding the bike up the hill. Okay, so I'll push a little harder. That's it. I think there is a third option, which is worthwhile to consider. Which maybe we could call pause and push through. It's a little bit of a different point. Imagine again, the mashal, I'm riding a bike up the hill. So what do? So I could just give up. I could work harder. I could get off the bike for a second. Maybe I need to push the bike up the hill for a minute, and then I get back on. Maybe I need to pause for a second. So in the realm of biking, I think many of us are more inclined to take a break, take a breather, and then get back into things. But in the realm of life and life challenges, that's not always the case. And I think that's an important idea that we have to be aware of. There is that opportunity. That's the way I understand what Rabbi Ariel is saying. I'm taking a neder. I'm in the midst of the crisis. Let me step out of the crisis for 1 second. Whatever is going on in my life. Let me reflect. Let me take a neder. Hashem, I believe that you have the ability to take care of me, to help me. I believe that there will be a better situation. I will be able to pay you back, Hashem. I will be able to give thanks to you. Okay, now that I've done that, let's go back in. But it's a pause. Lahavdil, but you have something similar in the world of sports. I remember once going to a basketball game, and I had an unbelievable chiddush even before the game started. It was mamish, a world-changing chiddush. I realized that all the players are really good. It was sometimes you watch games and you realize like that guy never makes a shot, or he only takes one shot a game. He's not even good enough that the coach will play him. He's like I could do what he does. And then I saw them warming up. And the guy that never got any playing time, he was behind the back 3-point swish every time. They're really good. That was a big chiddush of mine. So then I had a chiddush on top of a chiddush, which was I thought that the difference between the star players and the guys who never see any game time was talent, and that just wasn't true because I saw he's really talented. Okay, there is a difference in talent. I still acknowledge that, but my chiddush was that it's a combination of talent and ability to perform in the circumstances. That's the difference between what makes you a mediocre player, average, and all-star, and the greatest of all time. So, okay, we'll debate that afterwards. It's obvious, but fine. One of the people, just share with you one incident that really drove this home for me. So a little bit before some of our times, 1983, I think, Larry Bird. Larry Bird was an incredibly confident basketball player. What happened was, they were playing a game against, the Boston Celtics were playing a game against, I think it was Phoenix, maybe? I apologize, I don't remember exactly. And they were down. Larry Bird gets the ball with about 2 seconds left, shoots, swish, crowd goes wild, and then the referees call it off. Because there was a miscommunication, his teammates had called the timeout to regroup. So now they're back to losing and same situation. So Larry Bird was, as we said before, incredibly confident. We're not learning mitos over here necessarily. And he walked over to the opposing team's bench, which was right where they were going to be playing, and he said, "Watch this, I'm going to do it again, right in front of you guys." Okay. Then they went into the huddle, and the coach started to draw up a play. We'll go here. So Larry Bird said, "No, coach, don't bother. Get me the ball, and everyone else go away." And the coach said something like, "No, I'm in charge here. I decide what to do." So the coach said, "Get Larry the ball and everyone else go away." So what did they do? They got Larry the ball and everyone went away. And what happened? Shot the ball, perfect swish, and he basically turned around and said, "Got you." Exactly what I said I would do. It's a tremendous amount of confidence. But it's not just the talent, it's the talent and the circumstances. Do I have that talent? Do I have the wherewithal? And can I apply it in the moment? Now, some of us saw this firsthand. When, I don't know if it's the current war or the past war, I can't quite figure that out right now. But when Simchas Torah hit, and there was all of a sudden a war, so we saw many people step up to the plate. People took, not real, hopefully, but nidarim. They brought themselves to another level in the world of ruchnius. They brought themselves, whether it was chesed, baking, or visiting, or sewing, or making a tzitzis, learning more, davening nates, hafrashas chal. Everyone's doing something, and that's beautiful. Because says Rabbi Galeriel, what are we doing? We're taking the crisis and we're using it as a catalyst for something more. Can we perform in these types of circumstances? That's the question. And that's true in the let's call it classic Ruchni's world, and that's true in everything else as well. I've been dating for 6 months, for 6 years, for 60 years, and I haven't found the right girl yet. Okay, so what do I do at that point? Can I lean into this? Can I use this challenge that I have as a catalyst for change? Rabbi Yosef Albo, one of the Rishonim, writes in his Sefer Yikarim, he deals with the question head on, which many deal with, how does Tefillah work? At the end of the day, if Hashem's going to give it to me, then I get it. So if I daven, I'm going to get it, and if I'm not deserving for it, if I daven, then I still won't get it. What difference does it make in Hashem's world, in my life, if I daven? So says Rabbi Yosef Albo, that's true. It really makes no difference. Except that, and some of us might be more familiar with this from a verse, but Rabbi Yosef Albo says that Schneider pre-mincha and Schneider post-mincha is a different person, or potentially is a different person. And therefore, my pre-mincha self was not deserving of that. But perhaps I changed myself. I had a transformational mincha, and now I'm a different person. I'm a different person. I can be the recipient of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's bracha. That's the word of the Sefer Yikarim when it comes to tefillah. What I would argue is that let's take that further. When I lean into a challenge, when I take it on, I might not be successful. I really might not be successful. But I changed myself in the process. I got a little bit further in spelling Mississippi than I did before. Okay, that's something. I know there's S's and I's there. Okay, something. So that's I think, just to summarize, two ideas here. Number one, daven. Number two, lean into it. Lean into it doesn't necessarily mean I've got to solve it right away. No, just like I think Rabbi Schneider talks about live with the kasha, live with the challenge. Not forever. That's the pause. Pause. Okay, let's regroup. Let's recalibrate. Could I transform this? Could I demonstrate my emunah? I believe that things will get better. Okay, let's make a plan. Let's go on. So maybe these are some ideas that we've heard before, some that we haven't, because as we said, we're inevitably going to go through challenges, and also maybe a little food for thought as we daven Maariv. We're going to daven Maariv anyways. So we might as well daven Maariv and realize that when we're davening for Maariv, what are we really doing? We're davening in this modality of crisis. And then we have the ability to lean into that in the Maariv Tefillah and more broadly as we face crises in our lives.